Andrew, first of all, congratulations on winning the PraxisAuril KT Deal of the Year for 2020. I hope you have the trophy somewhere already, displayed proudly, probably at home at the moment.
Yeah, thank you very much. I mean, it was an honour to win, and we're really pleased that PraxisAuril recognised the social enterprise as a worthy winner.
Well, we'll come on to that, because that was one of the really unusual things about this deal. I mean, and deal, when I start talking about deals, it's usually about the deal value as sort of measured in hard cash, with all the Machiavellian twists and turns on the way of the negotiation and cutting up the pie type process. But with this deal and the sort of enterprise it resulted, it was really rather different from the normal, because it had social rather than financial benefits to each of the players.
Yes, that's right. And yeah, it was unusual for me. It's the first kind of social enterprise that I've been involved in setting up. So it was quite an unusual.
And can you tell us a bit about it? I mean, what is this thing called IRIS?
So IRIS is the name of the actual intervention that's the company's lead product, and it was essentially put together, I can't even remember when, by Professor Gene Feder and a few colleagues. Gene was a GP, and he became aware that he wasn't identifying domestic violence and abuse from patients who are presenting to him. So essentially he put this intervention together to do something about that. To enable people to identify and then refer people on to specialist support services. And then
so it was a kind of diagnostic, an accurate diagnostic.
Yes, although we don't really like using that term, but essentially yes, it's a way of training GPs to recognise it, and then also be able to do something about it. Because if you can't do anything about it, it's, you know, there isn't a great deal of point in identifying it.
So wind us back in time a bit, because as you said, there was a lead academic, or in this case maybe a GP or both, with its fantastic methodology for assessing domestic violence and abuse. But when you came into it, when you were called into it, it seems like the entire project was near to collapse.
Well,
what was right wrong with this? Really, you had traction.
So what happened is that the RCT was so successful that a number of the sites.
Sorry, the RCT?
The randomized control trial was so successful that a number of the sites wanted to keep on running it. And the team got a tapering grant from what was the Department of Health. And as that amount became lower, it was starting to get more obvious that it needed to be put on a more sustainable footing. And it was essentially run as a project by 3 or 4 charities. And what that meant, that it wasn't really a legal entity of its own, and no one was actually responsible for it and driving it forward. And so that made sort of decisions hard, the management of cash hard, all the kind of stuff that businesses are quite good at doing. It really needed to have a more solid structure put around it.
And I got the sense that it was sort of growing. You know, the demand was growing hugely, and that the original team that had been put in place to manage this, obviously delighted, but were completely running out of bandwidth. I mean,
yeah, they didn't really have the resources that they needed to really grow the opportunity. I think they were doing an amazing job, but they were sort of running to keep still, and they weren't really in a position to start growing it, which is what we really needed to create the greater impact.
Okay, so what did you do? I mean, you came in almost as a turnaround specialist in this case, and you know, what did you do to solve the situation? What were your priorities?
Well, really, I mean, I just facilitated the taking it from a project run by a number of charities into a new company. So I made sure all the IP was cleaned up and put in one place. I got advice on company structure. Worked with the team to put the board together, and then really tried to look at the financials and really, you know, what does the company actually need to get it running. And then of course the university has devolved impact funds, so we were able to use a bit of that for some business planning, and some legal advice, which is obviously greatly needed and not something that the charities could really readily afford.
Yeah. I mean, you mentioned that you got money from the proof of concept fund, some sort of internal proof of concept money. Was that a hard ask, given that you were never going to be able to offer any return on their investment?
Not at all. It was relatively straightforward. The university is very focused on impact, and I'm pleased to say that I was working in an environment where this kind of endeavour was encouraged, even though it doesn't tick a lot of the metrics that certain people want to collect about tech transfer, so patents, license income, that kind of thing. So there was none of that, but there was a new company and there was a great deal of impact.
Yeah, lovely. And you mentioned also that, just now and also in the application, there's a lot of due diligence to do. The IP was actually in 4 different places. So again, I'm really getting the sense from you that this was a process of corralling the IP into one place, but everybody was so on side, and almost because it was a social enterprise and therefore you weren't arguing about equity shares and all this sort of stuff, that
yes,
that was not a difficult process, a cooperative process.
Yes, there was it was a very cooperative process, and there was nothing contentious about it at all. It was really just trying to work out what went on or who owned what on a project that happened a long time before the company needed to. But so it wasn't contentious in any way. It was just a matter of identifying everything and getting it all in one place, so we knew where it was, so that then could be licensed exclusively into the new company.
Okay, and then you had the new company, which was incorporated as a company limited by guarantee. What drove that decision? I mean, there are plenty of companies offering services to the NHS that are actually for profit. So it isn't just because you are offering something that had a lot of social good doesn't necessarily mean that it has to be a non-profit making vehicle. So what was driving?
I mean, I think that, well, there were 2 main reasons driving the CLG format. One was it allowed a lot more flexibility for the company then to create a charity or turn into a CIC. And we didn't have to go through that process to start with. So that was one of the reasons. And the other reason was in terms of marketing this into to CCGs and others, we all felt that us being a non-for-profit would really help maximize uptake of the intervention. So really, that's why we did it. We just thought it was the best thing to do to get maximum uptake of the intervention. And then having the conversation about us making profits is just another barrier to take up that we just didn't want to go through as a company.
Right.
And all about benefit maximization.
Okay. And then you said you had to build the team as well. I mean, was this a coalition of really willing people? Because fairly early on, you also brought in a CEO who's survived to this day as well.
Well, the CEO was actually one of Medina, who's fantastic, was actually involved in the initial trial, was actually a sort of national implementation lead working under the charities. She came into the role and has grown and is doing a fantastic job ever since. We put a board together, and that was Donna, who was steering the sort of the previous charities, and Jean, the clinical academic that came up with the intervention. So it was a very light show to begin with. We were worried, obviously, like all new companies, we were worried that we might not last very long. But I'm pleased to say I'm here sort of 3 years down the road. The company's really doing well. It's growing, and the hockey stick that people look at in terms of revenue is not a hockey stick of revenue. It's a hockey stick of women who've been referred on to special support. So the growth has been fantastic.
Okay, now the proof of concept fund is literally proof of concept money, and something has to flow from there. I mean, it has to become sustainable and right. So what were the finance? Was it did you work contract by contract, or was it more charitable money coming in, or were you able to go to an impact investment fund?
Well, I mean, we actually did go around a few impact investment funds looking at things like social impact bonds and quasi-equity investment. But I think that for the social impact bond, it needs to be a slightly bigger opportunity, and we kind of weren't quite there at the time. And we didn't really want to take a sort of a loan that we had to repay because we couldn't be certain that we'd have the money to repay it. And so there was a small amount of money left between the charities that essentially acted as the seed fund for the social enterprise. And without that, it would have been a real struggle. The proof of concept money was really to really look at the financials and do some financial forecasts. I mean, they're always a little pie in the sky, but it really helps to have some understanding of whether it's a reasonable thing to do and whether it has a reasonable chance of success. And so we got someone called Emery Stamping to do the business planning, and it looked reasonable enough to proceed.
I mean, everything that I'm hearing from you tells me that this wasn't a particularly contentious thing to put together. As you say, it was very much at every stage a coalition of the willing, including the people who wanted to use the service and the people who wanted to see it in existence. So it seems to me that what you brought to this and the major sort of deal-making contribution here was just making sure that everything was done professionally.
Absolutely, and it was really a facilitatory role and just a spot of very gentle herding towards the correct solution, if it makes sense. It wasn't contentious. Every stakeholder involved was really clear that this was the right thing to do, and it was a pleasure to work with everyone. I mean, there were quite a lot of stakeholders. There's a bit of stakeholder management that we did with the team. But really, that was about it.
Marvelous. And this was, you were first pulled in, what was 2015 or 2016? I know the company was established in 2017.
Yes, I think we probably spent sort of year and a half, getting all the ducks in order on this.
Okay, and so then the 300,000 plus the CEO was brought on, and you've remained as non-executive director of the company. You just got another £1 million grant in January. You said that during COVID, the demand for this, the unhappy demand for it, I might say, but the demand for this services has gone up considerably. I mean, this must be a hell of a ride for you.
It's without doubt the best project I've worked on to date. And it's given me so much satisfaction. I think mainly because the impacts were very short term and real and visible, whereas quite often you're doing a deal and the impact may not be for many years, if indeed it ever reaches market. So this was near term, tangible, and I could see that a real difference has been made, which is why it was such a pleasure.
Yeah, and the business must have also impacted is it Gene Feeder research. I mean, how's it come back? I mean, it's very nice to do this work for other people with external impact, but in what way has the department itself benefited from this?
I mean, I think that this is, well, I mean, the most obvious one is through the ref. It was a 4-star case study in the last ref, and that's only the impact has only grown, so hopefully it'll be submitted as part of this ref and hopefully get a good score. I think, or I hope that it's raised visibility in the faculty and the university more broadly that tech transfer isn't just for technologies, widgets, devices, drugs. We can really add value to across the range of activity that universities do. So I hope that it's had that effect.
And without putting words in your mouth, I mean, I imagine the data that is being collected must have a natural flow through to all sorts of academic publications that wouldn't otherwise have happened.
I mean, I think the trial data has been published. We're doing ongoing evaluations, and those data are really supporting the fact that it continues to be successful and it continues to make an impact. I think what it does do, and I think this is quite important, is really identify for some sort of public health and related research that there is a way that we can get this research into the market into end users, into the market in a sustainable manner. And I think that's really important across that research sector.
As a role model.
And something we're not, I think something as a sector we could be better at.
Yeah. This is a social enterprise. I mean, before we started recording, you were talking about other deals that you were doing that were definitely for profit. There tends to be this idea that social enterprises are radically different from for-profit enterprises. I mean, there's courses about social enterprise, and it's somehow supposed to be a different course from the other one. I mean, do you agree with that? I mean, organizations need money to scale. They need to be sustainable. They need professional management. They need pulling together. I mean, I'm getting even from your facial expressions now that you don't actually believe that's the case.
No, I don't believe that at all. I mean, I think the way you set these companies up is slightly different. And I think getting seed funding is more of a challenge when you haven't got shares to sell. In terms of the business, there are no real differences.
Yeah, okay. Well, that's what I thought. So I'm glad to hear you echo that. Just finally then, I mean, your advice to a KTO, knowledge transfer officer everywhere, when handed a project whose, clearly it's social impact that's going to be the outcome, run a mile or savor the opportunity?
I would certainly savor the opportunity. For two main reasons. It's learning. It's learning in a very different area, and I learned a great deal that I didn't know before doing this. So I've learned a lot from doing this, and also the personal rewards, not financial personal rewards, but are great, and it's worth doing. I mean, it's absolutely worth doing. But I will say it's as time consuming as any other spin out.
Mm-hmm. So you need
but worth doing.
The right sort of support that recognise socioeconomic. Perfect. Well, look, Andrew, thanks for taking the time to talk to me. It sounds like the most amazing project. Well done on the well-deserved winner of the award for this year. And I'm hoping that this recording will stimulate more people to look afresh at some of the more socially directed projects that they have in their portfolio.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much for your time. And there are networks like Aspect and other people really starting to look into this now. So I think recognition of this type of activity is growing and is going to become more important. And I look forward to seeing more of it happening.
Okay. Well, thanks very much.
Thank you.